All right, stream. So we're gonna do something fun here where we're gonna shout ideas. Aaron's gonna sort of help us build those out to a more fruition game concept that follows proper game design philosophy, I guess. Yeah. Well, that's
There's a right way to design
yeah. You're
games.
doing it wrong.
No, like I said, this just helps to like I won't do any idea generation. You just like throw stuff at me and you can talk about a game design you've had idea before. This is just like let's put that into practice. There's all the stuff that and you'll also see me start breaking a whole bunch of rules. I'll be like, well, let's not actually do that.
Either way, it'll help us out a ton when we're working on our game concept stuff so that we don't miss obvious things that come back to bite us in the
Well, I'm just writing some notes. So for
sure.
pillars, you kind of want to focus on like one for the mood, one for the world, and one for the experience. You can have two in one if the experience is really important and you dive into it, you can have more. But again, it is such a cheat, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Like it's all guidelines. Like doesn't work for you, don't do it. And feel free to break some rules, but feel free to also just take things and be like, let's do that. Again, a theme that I'll say a lot is like you don't need to innovate all the time. You know the hero's journey,
Yeah.
the thing. So I did a bunch of writing for some games ages ago. I'm not a writer. You shouldn't ask me to do that. I'm bad at it. But I was like, I'm not gonna do the hero's journey. I'm gonna do something else. I'm gonna do this and this and this. Turns out bad. It was a bad story that didn't make any sense. It didn't feel good.
Turns out
And
hero
then
journey for a reason.
turns out, and you don't need to do it, but if it's there for you and it's a framework that works, you're like, just do that. It's fine. Like you'll get a few people being like, that's the hero's journey. And like, fine.
You're watching a movie, you're like, hey, I know this moment. This is the all is lost moment.
Yeah.
We're just gonna, it's so funny. Me and my roommate were watching a movie yesterday, and it's like, damn, everything's really going to shit. So we just yelled, the all is lost moment.
And loops will
There's
do our
loops.
objective. This is riveting stuff on the stream.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, no, they're loving it.
F's in the chat. Okay, objective, challenge.
That's a B, yeah?
That's a B.
Oh, I'm sorry, my apologies.
In which part's a B?
That's the English spelling.
Yeah, yeah, the Finnish spelling, you're right.
B.
Oh yeah, it just kind of looks like a T.
B.
I think there's two L's in challenge, but you're on the right track there.
Oh, I also have the spelling of I didn't get into game development because I was great at like
Spelling.
grammar.
Oh, that's fair. I spell correct. We don't, there's, see, the problem is there's no spell correct for the whiteboard. There you go, $1 billion idea. Spell check for a whiteboard.
There you go. It's perfectly even, and
Love it.
no one's gonna say any more about
love
it.
it.
It'll be fine.
Secret grid.
And this is also perfectly round. You know that feeling of having to do a simple task in front of a bunch of people?
Yeah.
It just usually doesn't work. Okay, so we got pillars, we got game loops. We don't need to come out of this with like, here's 100% the thing, but like, let's make a game concept together. Or we could start off. So a fun way to start off this is somebody role play as a publisher, going like, I want this kind of game,
Okay.
and I will veto any talk of NFTs.
No Web3. Bring up Web3. Okay.
Yeah, but so cake.
Man.
No. I have a better one. Can I do one?
Yeah.
Okay. I want the next Among Us lethal company. I want something multiplayer.
Okay.
And I want something
Wait.
that's like cheap but multiplayer that people will drop. I want the next Chain Together.
Wait.
Yeah.
Multi-go.
Damn it. With my cake idea, it would be like poisoning the cake.
Okay, let's bring in the cake thing.
Okay.
And we want to appeal to a demographic that's not being currently served in the market, which is baking enthusiasts.
Okay.
Cozy.
You want a multiplayer cozy game? Okay. So Stardew Valley about it.
Multiplayer, we're low budget, which is kind of like there's a purposeful jankiness to a bunch of these games that make them endearing. So I'll put like jank. That also comes with like I assume as Mr. Publisher, Mr. and Mrs. Publisher, you want you want to be very shareable. You want to be very
Yeah.
streamable. You want people to
Well,
be
yeah.
watching on
We want
Twitch,
TikTok full of clips of this game.
TikTok. You want it to go viral, is what
Yeah,
you're
yeah, yeah.
saying. You want
We'll just drop that buzzword.
virality.
We want it viral.
Violence. It could be also a bit of
We need
a
violence.
mystery.
We just want
Stream
big
mode.
moments, right? We want because for streaming stuff, you need those big dramatic reactions, right? If we're gonna use
That's our challenge.
that's
And we're going to see, and we might see that some of these may be more challenging to fit together, or we might go back to our publisher or our team. Let's pretend a team, right? And go like, hey, this isn't going to work. Here's the part of cozy we can get. Maybe we can get cozy in the visuals,
in the art style,
right?
yeah, rather than the
But
gameplay.
actually, the core gameplay is hardcore multiplayer, like, but it looks cozy, or it has parts of the game that are hardcore multiplayer while you're in a big open world environment, and then you go back to your base and have a little cozy, like you make cakes, and they give you buffs for your next mission to go and murder people with cake as ammunition. Yeah, we're doing it. Yeah. Okay. Anything else that people want?
Should we try and set it to? Should we bring up like perspective potentially, like type of like the
Yeah.
something where we're at like a skill level wise, right? So it's like, oh, not up to like 3D animators, but maybe pixel art, like 2D style. Like, would that come in at this point?
Can we say it at this point? Yeah, I guess so. You would play to the strengths that you have as a team. So we'd be like, hey, as a team, our strengths are in 2D pixel art. Sure, let's do that. 2D, 2D pixel art. Do we want cooperative and competitive? Yeah, this is a good. Well, let's figure that out as we start doing this exercise because we'll figure out like maybe Great British Bay. I've got what are this is the segue. What are some inspirations? What are some other things? Because you'll never. It shouldn't stop you from making a game if you're like that's just like Among Us, but is like this. It shouldn't stop you. Nobody would ever make any games ever if that was the or any other media, right? So like, what's our inspirations? We've got Great British Bake Off. For those on stream, we were talking about it a lot in the break. For some, I don't know why we'd start talking about British TV shows, but for some reason it came up. Um, we're making a Great British Bake Off MMO. Yeah,
Really oriented version of single day.
Is it current times futuristic or is it fantasy because the great
yeah, could do. I'll just put in.
We're doing a cooking, like a cooking competition game. What big moments? I feel like you got to do British Bake Off competitive. Yeah, it's like Cooking Mama, but it's like PvP Cooking Mama.
Yeah. All right, what else we got for inspiration? We got British Bake Off. What else? Does anything else speak to like the multiplayer that like we had chained together was something?
can you sabotage the other team by like putting like baking sodas and
Oh,
soda?
Change. So, are we thinking about like maybe it's like twin-headed magic where there's two people on each team, so you have to like work together while also working against another team, so that you have both potential like fun interaction moments.
yeah. I know what that is. Yes, twin-headed magic.
Two-headed magic is just like two versus two,
Gotcha.
right? So you have an ally
I
and
have, I
also
have
an
exactly
enemy.
7 Magic the Gathering game experience. Like,
It's
no.
co-op and competitive.
Harvest Moon, Stardew Valley. Yep. It's
You
gonna
got a
hate.
cozy pixel art game. It's got to be started in stuff.
All right, what else we got for yeah, low budget jank? We got like chained together esque, got like goat simulatory stuff. Are we thinking that? Don't let me put words in your mouth. It's like you thinking higher fidelity than that? You thinking lower fidelity than that?
Fairly like it's pixel art, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the idea. So
What are some pixel art games that have this low budget? Jankiness.
Overcooked just not Pixar, but I was definitely thinking that if you're bringing a cooking game where you want to have like fun moments with friends,
Yeah.
It's like literally the perfect
Overcooked is like a very similar, yeah.
dish. Very, that was just objective variation is probably suspicious.
Yeah, I worked with these guys at Frontier,
Really?
Overcooked, and I am so happy for them and hate them at the same time. We both left Frontier at the same time, and I was like, I'm going to travel, and they're like, we're going to go make our own game. I'm like, good for you, man. You make your own small little game. You don't need to have big success to me, good for you. And then I see them accepting a BAFTA.
Yeah,
like,
they made
the next
Overcooked
year,
and then they made Overcooked 2 and
and now they do whatever the hell they want because good for them. So happy for them. Uh,
Overcooked.
yeah. Anything else? Anything else is like, well, it doesn't need to be low budget. Anything else like 2D pixel art that you want to like? Sure.
That's 2D.
Okay, I'm.
3D space,
But what we're coming towards, and we're just gonna go with a thing, so that we can kind of start like building on. Let's go with we're talking about Overcooked and like Cult of the Lambs, kind of like a 2.5
Yeah, we might have to do a 2.5, yeah.
perspective view, like isometrically.
Yeah. That opens up a ton more versatility for horizontal, vertical, all that movement, right?
Well, it's kind of like Among Us too, right? It's
Yeah,
the same.
2.5, yeah.
So, okay,
and hers means very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
of the
It's so style.
Collaborative Bake Off, yeah, the isometric. Okay, so this is a good thing. I talk about this later, but like any inspirations outside of games that we want to draw
Taskmaster? If we're
from.
bringing in British Bake Off, we can bring in some Taskmaster nonsense.
Let's go away from my. Let's flattered that we're making this about let's-
They're in or like chops. Any shape.
okay, I'm gonna put Bake Off then.
Okay, hear me
'cause-
out. We don't have like a setting to this yet. We just go with the British, right?
Sure.
So why don't we bring Dungeon Meshi in?
Yeah.
Let's bring the fantasy in and let's make the stuff like monster parts and stuff like that, right? Like for your cooking.
No, it's not.
That's Dungeon Meshi.
Yeah.
Delicious and Dungeon.
Delicious.
Monster Hunter 2. Monster.
That's awesome, right?
You think of Monster Hunter? Did you say Monster Hunter?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
You kill monsters and you collect stuff and use those.
You're a
to-
scientist in Monster Hunter. You don't kill monsters, you research them
Yeah.
with your great swords.
And you, by researching them, you somehow make armor out of their skins.
Yeah. There's
Um,
one part in every Monster Hunter game where they're like, the ecosystem's in danger. What is causing this change in the ecosystem?
Us.
It seems to have happened just as we got here as well. I don't know what could be. Let's go study more Elder Dragons. You're like, shh, yeah, study. Yeah, study. Okay, this is cool. So what I'm picking up on is we got like 2.5D isometrically. We want it to be cozy. We want it to be multiplayer, low budget. We don't need it to be super high polished. I'm imagining we're not too worried about like narrative or story. I think we're more worried about game.
I think it's about flavor.
Stardew Valley-esque story where like there could be there's the story that you kind of make for yourself and your connection between characters, but there's not necessarily like you got to save the world. You got to the stakes are
Yeah.
fairly low. I'm feeling here. And we want it to be streamable, so we want like unexpected things to happen. That probably means we want like a lot of systemic elements that have unpredictable or predictable but unexpected.
We need our own bracket.
Right, and then that could combine like the baking soda then overflows
Well,
into
the fun
the
thing is
vinegar
because
and it
we're
doesn't.
thinking like fantasy potentially, like dungeon monsters.
Yes.
The monsters can have even more unpredictable effects when you're cooking them, right? So like there might be puffs of poison because you miscooked a specific type of ingredient, right? Like
Yeah.
things that could cause your controls to reverse, for example.
And
like
you
that.
can learn what they do as you go along, gain like have some sort of codex.
It's like eating random stuff in Skyrim.
Licking rocks.
Okay.
Yeah, they wander away and you're like, get back in the
Yeah,
pen. Get
yeah.
back in the pot.
What about you folks? You got any ideas, thoughts you want to throw in?
Logan's like,
That's
nah.
cool. No problem. No, just feel free to yell.
Get up.
This is a very classic no wrong ideas. Like, yeah, throw something on, it'll go on the board. We're going to be making.
What else can we do? Do we
Um,
need proximity chat for a Pixar game? Probably not. Everything's kind of on screen.
I think that's going to be like we know it needs to be multiplayer. How we accomplish that can be like later in our like
Sure.
feature breakdown. Okay, cool. I think we're ready to start like laying up some pillars, and we're not going to do the pithy, amazing
The
wordsmith
wordsmith
version
stuff,
because
yeah.
that takes literally weeks or days of going on thesaurus.com and like synonyms for this.
Me when I'm
So,
naming things in D&D.
Mood, we've got. I'm picking up cozy. Um, what else? What was that? Do you want me to be stressed out? Interesting. Intense, maybe? Like, it's an intense, cozy experience.
Yeah, time crunch is good. Time crunch is
It's a quick job. We got some sort of way to
goofy challenges too.
Yeah.
rate. We're going to rate off against teams. Because we
So, with, like, yes, I think we've got Bake Off as our inspiration. Doesn't mean we're necessarily tied to, like, it has to be like that. We can take elements. It might be, like, um, streamable because you can, like, it's that quaint, like, you know, trying to help somebody else do something, or um, Bake Off in the sense of like unexpected things happen and you think it's easy, you can just make this kind of thing, but because you got the monster ingredients, now it's unpredictable. So that's not to say no. I was just to say like, hey, don't get too married to like, well, it's got to be exactly like this. Take parts of it, throw parts of it away.
Cozy, intense, maybe creative. Is creative a mood?
Okay, mood. I think it's more of an experience, but let's
Sure.
put. I think creative is one of them. Yeah.
You want to give them some freedom to combine ingredients in different ways to see if they can cook something. Obviously, the worst case scenario is you pull a Legend of Zelda, where you make like the suspicious, like what do they call it in that game? Dubious, yes, dubious food. Layer with ingredients because then
Yeah.
so you can end up with like random selection stuff. Do not know even really know what they are. Make the guns so random and you can just go like, oh, can't be leave guns the else because that's cannibal. Yeah. Okay, so like
Yeah.
there's different judges that make
But it's funny.
Yeah.
It's a funny game.
and I think we were talking about the Stardew. Oh, we were talking about Stardew characters, how there's sort of that flavor of the NPCs that could be brought in mostly through the judges, yeah. Where
Sure.
like they're the specific characters, so like maybe one of them is like a Minotaur with a Simon Cowell personality, right? Like he's just like kind of a dickhead, but whatever.
Yeah, it's a no for me. Yeah, like,
Yeah,
it's moo. So there's puns and
yeah.
okay. Yeah, I put high fantasy as our world
Sure,
because
yeah.
we're all talking about high fantasy. In terms of our world, anything else that we would need to establish? That, okay, if anybody's an artist here, what would help you
High
create
fantasy,
art?
but with like almost like an anachronistic modern vibe to it.
Mhm.
Sort of like
So, fan art. They've got potion vending machine, kind of like that.
well, I was more
I
imagining
see.
like because of the fact that you've got this like cooking show premise, right? So there almost have to be like I'm imagining almost like fantasy high, maybe like closer to that vibe, but maybe even slightly pulled back a bit more from that.
So I was like, I'm sure there's a term for this, but I put high fantasy modern.
I
So
mean, there's modern fantasy, but that's not the same thing.
no, it's not. It's not. It's not like was it Blight with
Vampire the Masquerade.
The train. If you guys are all like modern characters, heading towards fantasy version of Las Vegas.
I don't know, I think it's funny to do fantasy where you just sort of like bring in things that are anachronistically not part of the
It's
setting.
like the Futurama vibe. Where
Yeah.
like in the future they wouldn't have microphones on a TV set and with a boom, but they still do. They
Yeah.
bring it in 'cause it's a good, nice mix, nice mashup. Okay, yeah, I like that.
Things to give you a chuckle.
Cozy, intense as our mood. I think that's pretty good. We got for our world, high fantasy, modern. Do we want like cute or like appealing? Because I'm not picking up like dark and
No,
like
definitely.
oppressive.
I think we talked
place.
about funny, so the characters would probably be closer to like almost like a monster prom aesthetic.
Right. But yeah, the characters could be, but like you could have like high-spirited, funny characters
In a dark
brooding
world.
world. I'm picking up on that. Well, it's not like gumdrops and rainbows fairy tale, but it's like, um, it's not everything's terrible.
No, I think it's like a
Pasta.
Yeah.
Less rainbows and, you know, and stuff.
Okay. Here's a good thing. If I was to ask the artists here, like, if I was to ask you, cool, go make concept art for this, you're bound to be like, well, I need more information.
Yeah.
What do you need?
So dark would be too long. I think the dark would have be done for a high fantasy resident dark, so small, right?
Yeah.
Or dark are fine.
high saturation, like bright, like so we say pastels maybe, but also like you go the other way where it's like very, very like bright and colorful characters and stuff like that. Because like for something exciting, right?
This then like hurts. Like,
No, it's good. It's good. I think yeah, that's one way you
Yeah.
achieve this thing. How would I
Kind of light, but still aspects going on.
I now want to see a mummy wrapped in rainbow sweeper.
You do any gimmick you want. You can have a Mothman.
I guess it's very I guess it's very like tongue in cheek
Yeah.
a little bit. I think that belongs in world as well because you would get it through the like environments. The environments would be like not quite punny, but
One could be like a dungeon where
you'd have like an endless like a kind of an enchanted vibe.
yeah.
I'm getting
Yeah.
like
Definitely
be-
like kind of making fun of the genre a little bit.
yeah, there'd be an bottomless pit, and it would be a funny bottomless pit, not a
You could do the whole
so-
cooking show in a bottomless pit where you're just like floating over to the elements
Yeah.
as it's just falling forever. And the judges have their judges table and they're also falling forever. Just all fathomless abyss of motion.
That's just giant elements that you're trying to.
Right. Okay, cool. I think that's pretty good. I think we're all now saying like this is beautiful to see in action.
I even like here's a bomb exploding in my face, but I'm still lost.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, so
Like dirt bomb.
Yeah. If you're being poisoned, all it's doing is literally just making you a little cuckoo for a little bit. So you're like your controls are reversed.
right, which makes sense in the there's an intensity about like a Looney Tunes cartoon of like Bugs Bunny doesn't just get a bit burned, his face gets blown off, but it's just charred,
Yeah.
charred, right? You know he's gonna be okay. Yeah, okay. And that's the cozy. Maybe
Yeah, but we talked funny, tongue in cheek. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
maybe safe is something here because you know that nobody's in danger.
Yeah.
It's not like it's intense, but it's not intense being like we're gonna die or in danger, dramatic bad things are gonna happen. It's intense because everybody has intense emotions, or the stakes can feel really high, but they're actually very low. It's actually about making a cake for the Goblin King,
Mhm.
and everyone's like, "Oh, I need to appease the Goblin King," but he's just gonna have a tantrum and smash the castle down. He's not gonna go on a murdering spree.
Yeah.
That kind of
Can we add Monster Prom to the inspo list?
monster. What? Sorry,
Monster Prom?
monster.
For the inspiration.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I would
Sure. Definitely imagining for the character portraits, though, like sort of Monster Prom-esque style ones where they're like
Oh,
very
prom.
distinct and funny.
They said monster prop.
No, prom. It's a dating sim.
It's really good.
kind of games are good.
I'm
Every
I'm
game.
aware. I have a safe search on Steam, and that's ticked.
No dating sims.
Okay, great. And this is beautiful to see because already I think we're all super on the same page. We're all talking about like nobody's going. Well, This is the perfect time to say actually, I'm thinking this because yeah, we're all saying like yeah, it's intense, but it's safe. It's high fantasy. It's like oh, what if this? What if it's Monty Python-esque and this? And we're all like riffing now. And there's a power to like I'm just writing stuff on the board, not very well, but there's a power to having somebody collate this because again our brains are dumb, and if I write something on the board you're like I guess we should stick with that, follow that and see how it goes. So even if you're doing this remotely, getting on a Miro board or a Google Doc or something and just having somebody walk through and be like cool, we got that, let's move on to the next thing. and it doesn't need to be right, it doesn't need to be perfect. You just decide something. This is really cool. It's exciting. So, what would we do now? Okay, yeah, let's talk about the game loop. So we're not worried about features right now. Features are a way to achieve the things we want out of our game loop, and we want to have our objective, which is like the thing that the player is setting out to do, and then a challenge, being like, how does the player achieve that? The reward being the thing that the player gets for doing it, which, and this is always the hardest part, somehow leads back into the I can now set myself a different objective, or I'm now capable of doing different things and I want to do those. Here's me going and doing those. So, yeah, what do you think?
For
The objective, whatever the
make a dish for the judge.
Make a dish. Yeah, I could put cook.
Cook.
cook
Cook.
Well, okay, so interestingly,
present the challenge.
cook. Yeah, cook is probably the challenge, or
It's the objective to appease the judge then.
yeah.
Challenge. The challenging dish to make is a part of the challenge itself.
Imagine each judge has their own like preferences, yeah? So like
So there's something here. I think what you're saying. There's the objective is you are trying to identify. Um, you're trying to recognize traits. You're trying to recognize what you need to make and make a plan, right? Yeah.
We can flip out except for judging game too.
Yeah.
Judge
I imagine that each map would have different like stage hazards and each judge would have different requirements.
Yeah.
Right.
not like they think that it's just the team together to face the challenge is definition process plays like a big
And then doing it.
You're you're almost there. I think you're spot. I would flip those. I would say that the objective is figure out what you like, make a plan, like put together a recipe list or a shopping list,
Sure.
or do some kind of like figure out like I'm gonna need these recipes to make that thing because they wanted something that was sweet, and I recognize they wanted something sweet because I know that they're doing this like
have like this small description of you're doing and then you would have and one day like something
Maybe instead of description, it's like each character, each one just shows up and like talks for like maybe 3 lines, and it's just enough so you maybe get like a hint of what the vibe is.
meaningful with
As you play more and more, you can learn. Oh, so in Stardew, each character has a list of likes and dislikes that you learn by doing it for them, right? So maybe the reward at the end is that you update your profile book, right? So maybe there's like a set of 12 judges overall, and as you figure out what they like and dislike, you can add that to your book there.
I like that. So I put this is all great. I think plan recipe encompasses all of this. You're making some kind of plan, the things you need to buy, the things you need to gather, where you need to get them from, how you're going to cook them, the time that you have. You're just in your own brain. This isn't necessarily in game. This is the player's brain going, how do I information gather? What do I have? What do I equipment do I have available in my kitchen? What could oh yeah, it would be definitely be better to make the 10 tiered wedding cake, but I don't have that. Okay, so maybe I can make this in time, but I just try to figure that out. And then yeah, I think the challenge is cooking it, doing it. Does anybody else feel like anything else should be here for challenge?
I feel like challenge makes sense to be the one to do the thing, to play the game, to do the core gameplay section there, more or less. Like
And this is always like the biggest, meatiest
piece,
part
yeah.
of, and this would, if we were to do this further, be like nested loop
Have its
of
own,
like
yeah.
taking stuff out of the oven, putting it in, testing it, the temperature, putting it back, like analyzing.
Each tool in the kitchen would have its own like little mini loop on it.
Yes, totally. But I think it's cook, and then here I think it's something like evaluate.
Could the reward also just be like the funny reactions from the judges? Is that a reward in itself? Is like characterization?
Yeah,
like incentivize.
Well, you get the information as well, but like part of the reward is information plus a funny character beat, right? And bragging rights, yeah. If you win, right?
I'm gonna put like serve,
Sure, yeah. Plan, cook, serve.
which is not quite it's not a reward. Serving is the fine. I think serving probably comes here.
Okay.
Like after you cook, you serve, and then
Rest.
yeah.
Sure, yeah, upgrading your kitchen so that you have better elements for the next rounds. Decrease.
Lower the time.
A better stove means you cook 10% faster or whatever.
And then it ties into this because okay, now I can plan different recipes. Now I have
You
more.
make a bigger, fancier recipe because you've got more stuff. You can hire an assistant.
Yeah,
You just got a little guy who runs around and like checks things for you.
I think you're spot on. What's the word here?
Your little guys, yeah.
You're spot on. What's that word or phrase here? It's like without going specific into
Progress.
features, it's like prize
Upgrades, people. Upgrades. Capital.
present is close. Plan recipe, cook, and then
Review, which
no present. I think you're totally right. Present. Because as part of that, you then get the
You get the rewards,
evaluation,
yeah.
you get the actual tangible things. And
there's the
even
planning
if
phase,
even
the
if you
cooking
don't
phase.
get tangible money, it's present as a good reward because it might be like, no, you failed, that did badly.
Yeah.
But then your reward is knowledge. That you now know better
Planning,
that the
judging,
Goblin
or
King
presenting
doesn't like
is part of the
meat,
judging.
he likes sweet foods.
Yeah. So,
So-
if you fail, you can learn from the mistake
Yes.
and go back to the next time. Like, oh, here's a point. This is much better.
Present. Let's test it. So let's go. Okay, I plan my recipe. Does that lead into cooking? Yes.
Naturally,
So
yeah.
I plan my recipe and then I have my plan. I then go execute. This is the objective. This has a lot of obstacles in my way. I've got a time limit. I have limited space. I have a bunch of plates to spin, a la Overcooked. I then present it, which is the reward. This isn't particularly challenging to do. This is just the thing happening. I then either get a physical reward or a combination of like I get money, I get equipment, you won the golden spatula that can do these things. Or if you completely failed, it's still part of a reward loop because I gained knowledge, which leads me back into planning like, no, try again. And if we give strong feedback to the player to say, no, they don't like this dish, they like this other kind of thing. Or like, they hated the bacon, but they loved the maple syrup on the bacon. And you're like, oh, maybe if okay, they like maple syrup. Cool, let's do more of that. And that gives you knowledge leading to here, which does the whole thing again. And then does it work with the pillars? And so you'll do this all the time. You'll go back and forth and back and forth. Does planning a recipe work? Yeah, it's cozy. It's intense. We've all been in the kitchen and been like, what do I have? I only got these 3 things in the fridge. What do I do? Cooking is intense, but it's still cozy. It is still safe.
Okay.
It's cooking. Is it high fantasy? Then yes, we can bring that in to the recipe planning. That's all like dragon eggs and whatnot. Tongue in cheek, it's not a stove. It's a wizard standing there with
With a torch.
You said no.
It's just a goblin holding starts off as a goblin literally holding a torch and
Yeah.
cook on that.
Is it creative? Yes. We're cooking. We're planning a recipe. It's creative. It's unpredictable. Yes. Things happen. Is it funny? Yes.
You can add in the standard bake-off thing where it's like halfway through you just add a pivot point in the middle where it's
Yep.
just like, now we're adding in, you have to have used this ingredient or you have to add this additional ingredient to. Yeah.
So now, interestingly, we've gone completely away from multiplayer.
Well, I think the idea is still that you play with your friends at the very least, right?
Did anybody? So that's I wasn't coming away with any multiplayer vibes from this.
Really? Okay.
Everything seems sober. I'm not saying you're right. This is a good example of now as a team we've done this a little bit.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're right.
So and
See,
if
that's
we
funny.
would have gone away and gone, let's get to work, let's do the thing, you'd have gone away and gone, cool, multiplayer.
Yeah,
You
I would
gone
I
away
would have went and started making net code.
right. So that's why we just do this thing and we connect them again and make sure they're all on the same page.
Yeah,
So
because I was imagining literally like if you were to pitch this to somebody, be like, it's Overcooked meets Monster Pop.
right.
right? And that's what the pitch would be like, so you've got the overcooked section, and then you get some of that monster palm flavor with the interactions with the judges. Maybe there's even like some chat box selection that each player gets to do when they're like presenting it to choose like the attributes that they're telling the judge it has.
Interesting. So, okay, then I think that if let's pretend that these are sacred, let's pretend that we set out to make a multiplayer game and that's just has to happen, or like we really want it to happen.
Sure.
That's good. So now we should come back to these and modify these a little bit to make sure that it's reflected. I think plan recipe is good. It kind of reads as a solo thing that you kind of just make a plan, or it doesn't tends to not lend itself well to a group activity to like
So maybe
plan
you have to
this
break it
very
up into
important thing.
roles where
Maybe,
one's
or
like
maybe you also have like maybe we do like plan and assemble
plan and collect, where
equipment.
one person's like picking like scrounging through a recipe book, sort of like
Yeah.
keep talking, no one explodes, looking, and the other person's like yelling off the ingredients that's on the shelf, and you have to find a recipe that the stuff there can make.
Yeah.
As part of the planning, where you go back and forth between one
I
and
think
another
so.
person.
And importantly, this can't be the main challenge. Isn't the main the challenge.
No.
So whatever this needs to be, it needs to be pretty simple and lightweight. I would, for expediency, I would say we make this prepare or gather. And it's like you have a larder, you have a fridge. It's just like one person can be there being like, okay, yeah, we should make the cheese tart. Oh, good idea. Okay, what do we need? You go over to this thing. Oh, we need 5 cheeses and 3 magical lily pad, whatever.
60
And so then,
seconds, grab whatever you
and then
need.
the other person is like, oh, grabbing up. We do the Gordon Ramsay style. Like, what does he have? He has that elevator thing that goes through. No, because let's bring it back to this. You can't do that because it's a challenge. We want to make this not a challenge and more of a like objective. So I'm gonna put like gather.
So maybe you don't put a timer on it.
Yes.
So literally just like someone scrolls through the recipe, someone else collects the ingredients, and that's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. This is like you're in Helldivers. You're prepping your loadout.
Yeah.
You're not under duress doing it. But see how it's been useful to have like, well, this is the objective, so it can't be under. Okay, so
That would
it
still
needs
come before, like, basically, we'd present the judges. They would introduce themselves as the judges,
Mm.
and then you would go and do the prep, because that way you know what you're trying to make for
Yeah,
your target audience.
that is a way that features could map to this.
Yeah.
I think that's like 3 levels
Deeper? Okay.
deeper, which is good. It's good to keep like we'll continue to do this a lot. If we were to continue making this, we would yo-yo back up and down to features. But yeah, this is the really tricky thing to do at this stage is to not get super attached with it, because we might get to this and be like, it doesn't work with judges. It actually should be presenting it to another player or something.
The other thing is also, like, we talked about multiplayer. You can still do it solo, but against other players, potentially, right? Where each person's trying to present the best meal to the judges. So we don't necessarily need to change anything about the plan section. We're just literally like looking at what recipes you have access to
Sure.
and information.
But the way we make this multiplayer is like, planning something is a difficult thing in a video game to all collaborate on. Normally you get quarterbacking, you get one person being like, let's do this, and other people go, oh, I guess so. So you need to have everybody needs to have agency in doing something here and having an objective. And it's interesting we picked multiplayer. That's the one it's much tougher to get this, going without starting to play test and figure it out. But this starts to make sense. So I'm planning a recipe, I'm gathering, I'm prepping. It's all fairly cozy.
Before the timer starts, yeah.
It's intense in that like we want to do a good job, but it's not intense in rushing something. And then cooking starts. That's where it's intense. That's where the co-op gameplay comes in. That's where the unpredictability comes in, because you're carrying a dragon egg that you don't know what it does, and halfway across the room it hatches. Then I'm like, what's happening? And I'm like, what's happening? You're like, oh, this is happening. And this is where we could start bringing, if we start making out features here, we would start bringing in the player skills. We'd be like, okay, do we want this to be mostly about communication? And we could, and then we'd probably get halfway through developing the game and be like, it's actually just Overcooked. It's actually just pretty similar. How do we differentiate from Overcooked? Maybe we don't need to. Maybe we're like, look, do you know what? It's Overcooked with Dungeons and Dragons-esque, cutesy, high fantasy. That's fine. Or we go, do you know what? We want a little bit more something. We want to be more reflex based. So let's bring in a bunch of mechanics where like you're bringing a pot over and it's got like squid tentacles in it, and if it starts to do a thing, you got to press A real quick, like boom, slam it shut. Something that's a little bit more trigger happy.
More quick time offense
Yeah.
stuff in there. Yeah.
Which may be good, maybe not, but it steers us towards a separate thing. Whew, that's it. We did it. That was great. That was really fun, really good. And you wouldn't do it this fast and get to work. But now, if we were to go to work, we've all got in our brains, okay, that's the mood. It's cozy, it's intense, it's safe. We've all got in our brains the kind of world. We all know the kind of experience we're trying to make. And where we feel like there's like mismatches in the future, exactly like we just had, be like, oh, well, I didn't think about that. I thought about it like this. We'd go, okay, let's go back to the pillars. Does having a panel of judges support it being intense and safe? Or maybe it maybe it doesn't get across the safeness because it's a bit more confrontational. Maybe we don't want that. Maybe we want, instead of you're being judged, it's you're trying, you do the classic make it a reward thing. So you're not going to get penalized for doing badly, but it's like just more of an opportunity if you do well. So maybe you're like, um, I don't know, yeah, instead of like feeding a dragon, you are like trying to attract something to your tavern or to your pub. So it's like, you feel safe. There's no like, you're going to fail and get murdered. It's like, you're going to fail, oh, you didn't have as many customers. Or you had a few customers, they really liked your thing. And it's creative. We might get to a stage where it's like, well, it doesn't feel like it's as creative because there's a min-max strategy of, I know this person likes sweet food, so I just need to bring all the sweet ingredients. And then that leads us to be like, okay, I want it to be creative. So maybe it's in the presentation that's creative. Maybe the person doesn't actually care how it looks, or they care that it is blue.
That's what he likes. He's just like, I want blue.
Yeah. So now I have lots of creativity around how I make the thing blue.
There's a Cyclops who lacks depth perception, so he really doesn't like food that has a lot of depth to it. It's just like flat food.
And I'm sure as we continue to do it, we'd probably realize, actually, is this going to play well with streams? Is it going to be a bit too like stale? Do we have that like reactionary content that works pretty well on streams? Maybe not. Maybe we need more surprises. Maybe we need something that's more interesting visually to look at than just a top-down kind of
This insane
static
Excel
thing.
sheet of
Yeah,
recipes.
maybe you do need to be in a moving environment. Maybe you do need to be in a bottomless pit and have things come in. Maybe we have Twitch integration where I can type something in the chat and an ingredient flies at me. Like that would help.
Some Hunger Games, like the audience is supporting the contestants.
Yeah, yeah, could do that. Great. That was awesome.
Cool.
Round of applause for you. We did it. We're game developers.
What would you say the next step is?
Um, next step.
Yeah, so if we got this, so say that we were trying to make this for a game jam,
Yeah.
right? Where would we go next?
First of all, you make a big statement by dropping your pen.
Drama. Would you want to go into each of these parts of the loop then and break that down into what the bare minimum part?
I think you've done enough planning at this point on paper. I think now it's the classic fail fast, fail often, like just start putting stuff into the game. And depending on your discipline, figure out like where's the intersection of your skill set and achieving these goals. So if you're looking at this being like, I'm not very good at making high fantasy art in this way, but I am good at making it in this way, then play to that and explore that. Or then challenge this and be like, hey, I know this is cool, but I don't think we can achieve this with our time and resources because there's no point if we all leave here and be like, cool, who's going to write the netcode? And everyone's like, we don't have any programmers.
We have no one here to do netcode.
Yeah. Then we're like, okay, cool. Immediately, we're not doing that. Then immediately, we're going to rescope.
Suddenly it's single player.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So I would then go and scope it. And this is where I would do user stories. User stories is very useful. So you'd be like, as a player, I want to be putting together a recipe so that I can make a dish that I know the judge will like. And as a player, I want to, and then you just like bring out experience. You probably focus on this part the most.
Yeah.
Because it's where like the meat of your game is going to be. And you would specify like
because the present leads to a progression system. The planning helps you get to where you need to cook,
yeah.
But the cooking is the core gameplay. Yeah.
Yeah. But I wouldn't worry about getting anything balanced or it's all going to be super janky. No, I think you'd probably want to again spend like another hour thinking of user stories for each one of these
Okay.
to further like just gain that understanding of what it is and to have something to prototype against. So your user stories, let's use the egg example.
Sure.
Like I want to be, as a player, I want to carry dragon eggs across the room and be very tense about when the dragon egg is going to, if it's going to explode into a dragon and ruin my dish. They would be like, cool, how do we validate that in a build? Then it's like, what features do we need to make that user story true? We're going to need dragon eggs. We're going to need
Quick
them to
time
be on a
timers.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to need them to be on a timer. We're going to need them to turn red when a thing happens.
It's warning. Yeah.
And you don't need all of these things to be polished, but you need like, okay, we need a cube and we call it a dragon egg and
Yeah.
we need it to flash red.
It needs to jiggle or something beforehand to show that
Yeah,
it's of
it needs to be
attach.
representative of what it needs to do and get it across, but it doesn't need to actually look like the thing or sound like the thing. And then we need to be able to test it, play test it. And then we need to be able to play a build where like, have we accomplished this user story? As a player, I want to carry eggs, blah, blah, blah. Yes, doesn't feel very good right now. There's nothing else to really do. Cool, that's okay. Put that to the side. You've done that part. Now, what user story do you need to make the dragon eggs like feel like part of
You
a
need something
thing?
to use them with. So you
So
do
I'd
some
use it when I combine dragon eggs with sugar, it creates a cake.
cake.
Do it. Great. Okay, now you've got a balance between those two things. So like it's about good games are made if you like layer stuff up over and over again. Nobody comes up with a design on paper and goes, let's make it. Like never happens. As much as this is where GDC and stuff is useful, but it does give you the um, it does sometimes present itself as like we had a design for a game and here's the design and then we did it and it was
Yeah.
awesome. It's like
Kind of the
doesn't
opposite. But like so one of the things we've gone over a couple different times throughout the class and here was the Diablo 1 documentation,
yeah.
where it talks about initially it was gonna be multiplayer and it was like turn-based, and it's like you can see very clearly the proposal versus the game.
Yeah.
Very different things.
Yeah, and that's cool when companies are allowed to show that kind of stuff. It's really cool and good insight. But especially a lot of smaller indie companies will just follow the fun. They'll just be like, "We know this. Let's start cramming stuff in game as quickly and as dirtily as possible. That is still representative of what we want, but let's not be precious about any of it. Let's play test every day." And then when it works, we're like, cool, put it in a corner, do another thing. Cool, that works, put it in a corner. And then as long as you're working within this loop, you can make like, 10 of these little loops and you know they all work inside here. And then you know, cool, these are all plate spinners.
Mhm.
Let's manage the time between all of these things.
I have a silly question.
Yeah.
You're a game designer, so this is stuff like this is what you do. Yeah.
Mhm.
I imagine. Do you do a lot of coding?
I do coding to prototype, but don't put me in charge of any kind of architecture.
If someone here wanted to be specifically a game designer and it came to trying to build like a portfolio,
Yeah.
to sort of get on with the company as a game designer, would they just build like booklets of stuff like this, where they would just come up with a bunch of like 5 or 6 different little games and then do the whole mock-ups like you did sort of show us with that Sublime underwater game, sort of build those little like
Yeah,
pseudo
kind of.
presentations for it?
There's lots of ways. I go into detail on this
Oh, perfect.
in my
Yes,
next
we
thing,
talk
but
about portfolio.
the TLDR is go make games, go make really small games, smaller than what you're thinking right now, way smaller than that. Like you could do a scale of this. I would say it's like, this is 5 minutes of gameplay. That's it. You've experienced the game in 5 minutes.
Vertical
It's
slice.
it's one, or it's just a complete little small thing that you could extend if you wanted to, but
Yeah.
you're making a decision to be like, it's good. And then you don't need to worry about balancing things, content creation. So you'd have like 3 dishes you can make, 5 ingredients, one judge, boss, whatever.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the game. Make that good and cool. You'll get halfway through that game, realize you should have made a bunch of other decisions instead. Don't start again. Don't be just wrap it up. Take all of those learnings into the next game.
Don't keep working on the same game for 5 years trying to make it actually where it should have been.
I've done it. Spoke to a lot of people who've done it. They try to make their magnum opus like their first game.
Yeah.
And like I've made more than a dozen games. I still haven't done that. I still haven't made the one that I'm like, that's perfect.
That's my baby.
And I probably won't because that's really hard and that requires, frankly, just a lot of luck as well. And some people are again better at making more of their own luck than other people and just having a better accuracy rate. But yeah, the way to use what I keep making small games is all I can say. And yeah, I'll go into. Well, I don't want to just give you the whole talk now
No,
because
sounds good. Do you want to just take like call it here for this section here, and then
yeah, I think give me 6 minutes to drink some more coffee and then
do what you need.